In the dimming light of a dusty frontier town depot, where the relentless whistle of the arriving train pierced the air like a final judgment, Eleanor stood alone amidst the swirling chaos of passengers and porters, her heart shattering into pieces as sharp as the gravel under her worn boots. The man she had traveled across endless miles to meet, the one whose letters had promised a new life and a loving home, glanced at her once with cold indifference, muttered something about her not matching the image in his mind, and turned away without a backward look, leaving her trunk abandoned like a forgotten dream on the platform. Tears blurred her vision as the crowd thinned, the weight of rejection pressing down on her frail shoulders, a woman who had gambled everything on the fragile hope of a mail-order marriage, only to find herself stranded in a world that seemed even harsher than the one she had fled. If you believe in the power of kindness and the beauty of second chances, hit that like button, drop a comment sharing your thoughts, share this video with someone who needs a reminder of hope, and subscribe to Moments of Love for more stories that touch the soul. Eleanor's journey to this forsaken depot had begun months earlier in the suffocating confines of a Boston tenement, where the air hung heavy with the stench of coal smoke and despair, her days consumed by the drudgery of factory work that left her hands calloused and her spirit weary. Orphaned young and burdened with the care of a sickly younger sister, she had answered the advertisement in the Matrimonial Gazette out of sheer desperation, her letters to the rancher named Harlan filled with carefully crafted words that hid her fears and amplified her dreams of wide-open skies and a family of her own. Each reply from him had been a lifeline, painting pictures of vast prairies and a sturdy cabin waiting for a woman's touch, igniting a flicker of optimism in her chest that she hadn't felt since childhood. But as the train rattled westward, doubt crept in like shadows lengthening at dusk, whispering reminders of her plain features, her lack of dowry, and the scars from a life of hardship that no amount of hope could erase. Arriving at the depot, her heart raced with a mix of terror and anticipation, only to crash into the abyss when Harlan's eyes met hers and found her wanting, his rejection not just of her appearance but of the vulnerability she had dared to expose in those ink-stained pages. The platform grew emptier as the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows that seemed to mock her isolation, the distant calls of birds echoing her unspoken cries for help. Eleanor clutched her faded shawl tighter, the chill of the evening air seeping into her bones, mirroring the icy grip of abandonment that threatened to freeze her resolve. She had no money for a return ticket, no acquaintances in this rugged land of cowboys and cattle drives, and the thought of begging for shelter in a town that valued strength over frailty made her stomach twist with shame. Memories flooded her mind, unbidden and painful, of her sister's frail form wasting away in that dim room back east, the promise Eleanor had made to send for her once settled now crumbling like dry earth underfoot. She sank onto her trunk, the rough wood biting into her thin dress, her mind racing through impossible options, perhaps finding work as a laundress or seamstress, though her skills were meager, or worse, facing the predatory gazes of men in the saloons that lined the dusty streets. The weight of her choices pressed down, each one a thorn in her already wounded heart, as she wondered if this was the end of her fragile bid for a better life, if fate had conspired to leave her broken and alone in a world that demanded resilience she wasn't sure she possessed. Just as the last rays of sunlight faded, painting the sky in hues of bruised purple and gold, a figure emerged from the gathering dusk, his boots thudding against the wooden planks with a purposeful rhythm that cut through the silence like a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. He was a cowboy, tall and weathered, his face etched with lines from years under the merciless sun, his hat tipped low over eyes that held a quiet depth, as if they had witnessed too many hardships to judge hastily. Without a word, he approached her trunk, his strong hands, calloused from ropes and reins, lifting it effortlessly onto his shoulder, the act so simple yet profound that it halted the flow of her tears. He turned to her then, his voice steady and warm, calling her wife, in a tone that carried no mockery, only an unspoken promise of protection and partnership, as if he had been waiting for this moment all along. In that instant, the depot transformed from a place of rejection to one of unexpected salvation, the cowboy's gesture igniting a spark of bewildered hope in Eleanor's chest, though she couldn't yet fathom the story behind his kindness or the trials that lay ahead. His name was Silas, a man whose own life had been scarred by loss, his ranch a solitary outpost on the edge of the wilderness where he had buried a wife taken too soon by fever, leaving him to wrestle with grief that echoed in the empty rooms of his cabin. He had come to the depot that day not seeking a bride, but on a routine errand for supplies, yet something in Eleanor's forlorn posture, the way she sat with her head bowed against the world, stirred memories of his own vulnerabilities, compelling him to act where others had turned away. As he led her toward his wagon, the trunk secured in the back, the town lights flickering to life like hesitant stars, Eleanor followed in a daze, her mind a whirlwind of questions and cautious gratitude. The ride to his ranch stretched into the night, the wagon wheels creaking over rutted paths, the vast prairie unfolding around them in a tapestry of whispering grasses and distant howls that spoke of untamed dangers. Silas didn't press her with inquiries, allowing the silence to wrap around them like a shared blanket, but in that quiet, Eleanor sensed a kindred spirit, a man who understood the ache of unfulfilled promises and the courage it took to reach for something more. Arriving at the ranch under a canopy of stars that seemed brighter than any she had seen in the crowded east, Eleanor stepped into a world both intimidating and inviting, the cabin's lamplight spilling out like a warm embrace against the cool night air. Inside, the space was sparse but sturdy, with a stone fireplace that promised heat against the coming winter, and shelves lined with books that hinted at a thoughtful mind beneath the rugged exterior. Silas showed her to a small room, once his wife's, where a quilt pieced from faded fabrics lay across the bed, each square a remnant of happier times now offered to her without reservation. That first night, sleep eluded her, her thoughts tangled in the web of uncertainty. What if this was a fleeting mercy, or worse, a hidden motive? Yet as dawn broke, painting the horizon in soft pinks and golds, Silas rose early to tend the livestock, his movements efficient and unassuming, leaving her to explore the land that would become her new battleground. The challenges mounted swiftly, as if the frontier itself tested her worth, the isolation of the ranch amplifying her insecurities and forcing her to confront the fragility of her spirit. Mornings brought the relentless chores, milking cows with hands unaccustomed to the task, gathering eggs from hens that pecked at her skirts, and learning to bake bread over an open flame that scorched her fingers more often than not. The land was unforgiving, with dust storms that blinded and choked, and predators that lurked in the shadows, threatening the herd that represented Silas's livelihood. Eleanor struggled against the physical demands, her body aching from sunup to sundown, but deeper still were the emotional tempests, the ghosts of rejection that whispered doubts into her ear, making her question if she could ever truly belong in this harsh paradise. Silas, sensing her turmoil, offered guidance with a patience born of his own sorrows, showing her how to mend fences not just of wire but of the heart, his presence a steady anchor amid the storms. Yet tensions arose, subtle at first, like when a letter arrived from Harlan, laced with regret and pleas for her return, stirring a confusion in Eleanor that tested the budding trust between her and Silas. As weeks turned to months, the narrative of their lives intertwined like vines climbing a trellis, each shared hardship forging a bond stronger than any written vow. Eleanor discovered strength she never knew she possessed, rising before dawn to ride alongside Silas, her hands growing steady on the reins as she helped drive cattle across swollen rivers, the rush of water mirroring the flood of emotions she navigated daily. Silas, in turn, opened the vault of his past, revealing through quiet actions the depth of his loss, the way he lingered by a small grave on the hill, or how he carved wooden toys for children who would never play with them, allowing Eleanor to see the vulnerability beneath his stoic facade. Challenges persisted, from a brutal winter that blanketed the ranch in snowdrifts, forcing them to huddle by the fire sharing stories of their youths, to a raid by rustlers that left Silas wounded, his blood staining the earth as Eleanor bandaged him with trembling hands, her fear giving way to fierce determination. In these trials, she found not just survival but transformation, her initial rejection at the depot fading into a distant memory, replaced by the realization that true partnership bloomed not from perfection but from shared struggles and unwavering support. Suspense built as external threats loomed larger, a neighboring rancher coveting Silas's land and spreading rumors that painted Eleanor as an interloper, unworthy of the life she was building. Whispers in town during rare supply runs chipped at her resolve, echoes of Harlan's rejection resurfacing to haunt her, making her wonder if she was destined to be cast aside once more. Silas stood firm, his defense of her a silent declaration that resonated deeper than words, but the climax came during a fierce thunderstorm that ravaged the ranch, lightning splitting the sky as floods threatened to wash away everything they had fought for. In the pouring rain, Eleanor and Silas worked side by side, securing the barn against the gale, their hands brushing in moments of electric connection that sparked a profound shift. As the storm subsided, leaving the world washed clean and glistening, Eleanor confronted her deepest fears, choosing to stay not out of obligation but out of a love that had grown organically from the soil of adversity. By spring, the ranch bloomed with new life, calves gambling in the pastures and wildflowers carpeting the hills, a metaphor for the renewal in Eleanor's heart. She sent for her sister, the cabin echoing now with laughter and healing, as Silas's quiet affection blossomed into a partnership that mended both their broken pieces. The depot rejection, once a wound that festered, became a pivotal scar, a reminder that sometimes the path to belonging detours through pain, leading to destinations more beautiful than imagined. In the quiet evenings, watching sunsets paint the sky in fiery splendor, Eleanor reflected on how a single act of kindness, a cowboy lifting a trunk and claiming her as his own, had rewritten her story, proving that second chances could heal even the deepest hurts. If this tale of resilience and unexpected love has touched your heart, leaving you with a warmth that lingers, please like this video, subscribe to Moments of Love, and share it far and wide. Your engagement means the world and keeps these stories alive. Before we wrap up, I'd love for you to comment below with the line, "Kindness changes everything," if this story reminded you of the power in a simple act.